Good morning, anybody who may be listening. So the bin strike in Birmingham is ongoing, and the city is, increasingly filthy. It's a very interesting time because it's engendering questions about morality and what people should do and what the bin men should do. As far as I can gauge it now, when I first spoke, I saw a lot of sympathy in the community, just checking on local residents' forums, which I'm a member of. But now the tone has changed, and a lot more people are saying that the striking workers should be sacked, and they've run out of patience with them. One of the issues that's brought up often in the comments is that the council leaders awarded themselves a 5.5% pay rise before this action. Now, I don't know precisely how much the management tier in the council do earn, but I think it's a bit of a gravy train, to be perfectly honest. And the figure for the chief counsellor, whoever he may be, perhaps he's the mayor, was around about £350,000 per annum. To have that sort of money and then to get a pay rise, obviously, it doesn't look at all good. And many people are drawing these comparisons. And, that why should the bin workers have an £8,000 cut when the council are awarding them, the bosses, as it were, a 5.5% increase on their already grotesquely inflated salaries? And it's a good point, but it's irrelevant, really. The fact that one man is richer doesn't really change your lot whatsoever. It's an ideological war that is setting in people's minds, I think. The fact of the matter is that the council is not fit for purpose. Apparently the Lord Mayor hasn't even spoken to the bin men, and surely that would be one of the first things you would do. This gentleman, who is an Ishmaelite, running our city, which has a large Muslim population, of course, but far larger white, actually. Muslim and also Hindu population, smaller, I think. It's an absolute, it needs to be sorted out philosophically. The council isn't fit for purpose. And if only we had authority in this country, all the councillors would be subjected to the same sort of scrutiny that they were subjected to in the United States, if I'm to believe the newspapers. What did you do to earn your money? Apart from great reductions, because everybody's living in poorer conditions now. We can't have these gravy trains. There are many positions in the council that are just a surplus to requirements. DEI positions and positions of concordance to ensure that all the policies match up and all this sort of thing. Cosmetic, where their job is just to run the city and to make sure that things like bin collections in particular are efficient. So, I have no sympathy for them. And then they bring in this third actor, of course, which is the trade union. Well, a lot of people don't have that luxury of appealing to a trade union. The trade unions can't create money out of thin air. Apparently, they're paying the striking workers £70 per day during the action on the condition that they strike. I'm sure that a lot of the bin workers are in a very difficult position themselves between the union, the financial hardship of we are all facing in the world, and I know some people aren't, but most of us are. And their desire to work and the way that they are viewed by their neighbours. I heard one bin worker interviewed some time ago, and he wouldn't show his face on camera. That tells you something. If you're an honest man, you can show your face because you will only speak honest words. The Bible says it's not that which goes into a man, that which comes forth from his mouth that defiles him. Our words are very, very important. I think of this also, I was reading Jeremiah, there's a verse to that effect, which I can't currently recall. But blasphemy in the streets defiles the nation. We must be very careful with our words at all times. And cursing one another and cursing this, that, and the other, really, this is very detrimental to peace and prosperity in our land. We must respect the Lord at all times, and particularly when we open our mouths. I'm more and more aware of this as I age, I suppose. I still sometimes I will curse if something goes wrong, and I will use the word bloody. And it always strikes me now, why bring blood into it? Where is the blood? It's blasphemy. And yet it's not even a particularly strong curse word, is it, you would think? We should be careful how we speak, and of course it applies to me also. It's a question of respect for the King who hears every single thing that comes from your mouth. So this is the situation in Birmingham. Somebody asked me to comment on electrical cars and internal combustion engines and what I think of the whole business. I thought it was odd that somebody would ask me. Personally, I really don't like the electrical cars at all because they're mostly hideous and just not cars. I'm a petrol head, I guess. I like, sports cars. That's what I'm into. And generally speaking, I don't like cars at all. When I walk down the street, I mentioned to my daughter recently, most of the people have these cars outside of their houses, and it would be a kindness to them to just remove them and crush them and get rid of them because they defile the neighborhood. And they're ugly. If you're driving something, I think driving should be, drive something worth driving if you're going to drive. You say, well, I have to drive to commute. And I suppose that could be the case for some people, and they are a separate case, although surely it's better to live close to your place of work if possible. And, there is such a thing as public transport, and it's relatively efficient in this country. I'm discovering now that I am without a car myself. And I take the bus. I do have the benefit that I have a bus pass as a pensioner, so it's free. I think you can get like a monthly pass if you're not as old as me. It's probably quite reasonable. I would hope it would be reasonable. But cars have strangled this country, and I think many Western countries, where in the 1960s, starting in the early 60s, they just started to build motorways up and down the land and across the fields. And it's wickedness. They've destroyed the landscape with these things. I can still remember the early days of cars because my father used to drive down to Wales from the time I was born, more or less, which is 1954. And driving down there, they were just A roads at the time, and there was very little traffic. My father was an early car owner, being a professional man. He was in an advantaged position. There were only 3 or 4 cars in our street, in our road, and it was a fairly long road as I remember it. Cars are, they're a curse on the landscape. They're a curse on our cities, and we just don't need them. How many people, have stopped walking and will take the car to go 2 or 3 miles? It's better to walk those 2 or 3 miles always, because you're increasing your health. You can go shopping and take a bag with you, or a little hand cart. There are so many ways to avoid fouling up the neighbourhood with traffic. I'm not concerned with air pollution at all. I think that's greatly overstated. But in terms of pollution, if anything, it's the electrical cars which are far more dangerous, isn't it, with their heavy metals and all the industry that's been created to provide these batteries. There's just too many of those things. I mean, an electrical vehicle, when I was growing up, the milk used to be delivered on a milk float, which it was powered by an electric motor, and it was quiet in the mornings. They were very nice. I'm sure that electrical vehicles will have their role, but we just don't need, it's the consumer society that's the problem, where every single house has to have at least 2 cars standing outside it. You don't need them. Take the bus, go for a walk, go on holiday nearby. That's what we need to start doing, build the community. And the cars are just a blight on the landscape and all the road building. Oh, I'd love to see those, many roads ploughed back and just cleared, and get back to green fields and to woodland, which is the natural British landscape. So I'm against all cars except kind of vintage cars, I suppose, or cars that are, people might buy a car just because they like it. It's a pastime, you could say. Or, essential transport. I do understand that some people will just need to have a car because of the way that their life is organized. And then I suppose they might choose electrical or whatever is most convenient. But I think in terms of protecting our, the earth that we have inherited, our Father's earth, the best thing is to preserve, keep the old things and repair them. Don't just throw them onto a scrap heap and buy new, or that keeps the world economy going, but the world economy is about to collapse anyway, as it should do. We can't build our lives on consumerism. It's a hopeless prospect. We need to build our lives on a productive lifestyle, and production really is primarily farming, livestock, chickens, eggs. That's what we need in our societies. So I would see the matter anyway. I don't know whether that answers the question that the person was wanting to ask. I mean, my opinion's irrelevant, of course, but that's the way I look at it. So, beautiful day in Albion once again. I'm going for my constitutional. God bless everybody.